My name is Carrie Broderson, and I am with the Greater Houston Partnership Events and Business Resource Group team. We have Tim Jeffcoat here, the Director of the Small Business Administration Houston chapter, and we appreciate his time. Tim and his team are very busy, and they are providing a lot of these webinars and workshops, virtual workshops, every day this week. So if you did not get all of your questions answered today and want to jump on with Tim on a later program, we can provide that information to you as well. Again, I want to welcome everyone to the Greater Houston Partnership's COVID-19 Houston Business Forum. We are producing a series of virtual meetings in the next couple of weeks to share relevant information about COVID-19 and address questions you may have about the sustainability of your business right now. Again, my name is Carrie Broderson, and I am the lead on our events and programs here at the Greater Houston Partnership. We're used to seeing you all in person, but this is a new normal right now, and we'll make sure and promise to keep you posted on new developments related to this virus and your business needs in a virtual setting. And we understand it's a very difficult time for all of you, and we want to support you where we can. So today is our first webinar. Tim Jeffcoat, as I mentioned, will be speaking on disaster assistance, and we'll have future meetings on other issues, which will pull you in the end to find out what those key issues are. And we also have Mark Winchester, Deputy Director of SBA, who will be joining us as well to answer questions in our chat. Other members of my team who you can't see right now, but they may pop up on the screen just so you can recognize a face, is Casey Schrade and Sarah Roberts, who are on the business resource team, and they're at home. And Lauren Dollard, who is also on our team, events team, but she is also a small business member liaison. So many of you have been communicating with her already, and she's been sharing resources with you. So they'll probably disappear here in just a second, but know that they're behind the scenes answering your questions on chat right now. Let me run through quickly the agenda. I think it'll be helpful for you to understand what's happening today. So first, just a quick overview of the program, and I'm going to take you through our partnership resources that we have available for all of our businesses. And then we'll turn things over to Tim to talk about disaster assistance. This is the reason you're on the call today. We'll also do a quick moderated discussion with Tim, but most of it will come through our chat, and you all are able to type in your questions, which Mark will be able to answer. We're also going to do a live poll, and this is going to help us with future programming, so please take that poll. And then I would like to just close by making sure that everyone has had access to our business survey, and we do appreciate you answering the questions in that survey. It will be used for group advocacy, and I'll share a little bit more about that towards the end. So with regards to partnership resources and support, we want you to know that the partnership is monitoring the situation, and we are ensuring that we have up-to-date information available for all of our members and our business community. And that is accessible on houston.org /coronavirus. So you can see that on our website. Again, all the information you need, we're taking information from the city and the county and the federal government as we receive it, and it will be posted there on a regular basis. We also do a daily briefing email. You may be aware of that. You might have seen that this morning. Our partnership briefing email consolidates all new information and shares it with our members. If you are not getting that briefing email, please email me after this event or in the chat box, and we will see about getting that information to you. We also have public policy updates. Those are included in the briefing email, but they're also on our Houston Report or our blog on our website. Also, this digital series, we will communicate the next couple of weeks programming so that you have access to learning more about employment, workforce issues, contract obligations, and other issues that we'll be bringing to your attention soon. Also, we want you to know that we have a team ready to answer your questions about financial assistance or anything else. And that team is standing by right now. Actually, you can engage with them through our member.engagement@houston.org. There are people behind that email. Rest assured, I'll give you some names: Jeannie, Angie, Rita, and others. So they're answering your questions. Feel free to send an email to them, and then they communicate that with the rest of the organization. Also, we have our economic updates that continue. Our chief economist, Patrick Jankowski, is also available, is actually available to the media and online. He just recently completed a podcast with us to share more information about what's happening with the economy. We also have our LinkedIn group, and I would really encourage our members to participate in that LinkedIn group and share stories as well as opportunities, and really give us an idea of what are some of your best practices are. So I know that a lot of our members are asking for information about what other businesses are doing, and this is a great opportunity to share those stories on our LinkedIn group. And then finally, our business survey, and we do encourage you to fill that out because we are interested in knowing what's happening with your company right now, and this helps us to consolidate efforts around the region for advocacy support on the state and federal level. Well, without further ado, I'd actually like to turn things over to Tim. I know he has important information to share with the group, and Tim, if you are ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and bring your screen up.
Sounds good.
Here we go.
Okay, well, here's what we're going to talk to you about today. First, good afternoon, everybody, and I hope you're coping well with this situation. We are some of those that are actually out driving every day, going to the office in order to do these kinds of things to try to help you out. What we're going to talk about: disaster loan assistance from the U.S. Small Business Administration. That's for small businesses and for private nonprofits. A little note about some non-financial assistance that we would love to be able to offer you. And then a little list of additional resources. These aren't, for the most part, going to be SBA resources, but they could be helpful. And these slides that you are viewing, if you look in the yellow at the bottom of this page, it will give you the website for us here in Houston. You can go to that website and you can download this exact slideshow. There's also another set of PowerPoints there that take you more or less step by step from one step of the application process to the end. I've moved up on my mic. Hopefully that's better. We can go to the next slide. So economic injury disaster loans. These loans are up to $2 million. There will be no payments for the first 12 months of the life of the loan. So if you applied for and got approved this month, then your first payment would be March of 2021. Small businesses, and as I say, private nonprofits are eligible. The intent is that these expenses, this money be used for fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that are affected by the disaster. It's a 3.75% interest rate. For private nonprofits, it's 2.75% interest rates. There is this caveat that if you have existing credit available, you are ineligible. We will talk more about that. That probably doesn't apply to you. And then long-term repayments are going to be made available for COVID crisis economic injury disaster loans of up to 30 years. Next slide. Some other important notes for you. There's no cost to apply to these loans. We're the federal government, so you don't have to pay us for anything. You've already done that. And if a loan is offered, there is no obligation to take the loan. Generally speaking, the amount is going to reflect 6 months operating expenses. So you know what your operating expenses are each month. If you multiply that by 6, that should roughly be the amount of the economic injury disaster loan. So we're making the estimate that this will last for up to 6 months. The nominal date that we're saying this begins is January 31st, the crisis, the economic impact crisis. If you have existing SBA loans, that's okay. It does not disqualify you or otherwise invalidate you. If you have an existing SBA business loan, like a 7A or a 504, that doesn't change anything. If you have an existing disaster loan with the SBA, such as a loan from Harvey, that also doesn't affect anything. But when you get this economic injury loan, those loans will still all be separate loans. They won't be consolidated. Now, while we're talking about disaster loans from Harvey, do let me point out that as of yesterday, I think, the SBA administrator issued a statement that your disaster loan that you currently have will be deferred until the end of the year. So you'll be contacted if you have that disaster loan. You will be contacted by the SBA and they'll tell you what the situation is. But if you would like to defer that SBA disaster loan that you're currently paying on until the end of the year, then that will be possible. You don't have to call us about that. We should be contacting you. Collateral is not required for an economic injury disaster loan if it is under $25,000. If it's over 25 and you don't have collateral, we won't decline you for that. But we are going to require the pledge of whatever is available. We certainly like the pledge of real estate, but in the state of Texas, that would exclude your private residence. Next slide. So rather than talk about who can do this, let's talk about who can't be eligible. So any business where gambling is more than 1/3 of the annual gross revenue, casinos and racetracks where their purpose for being is gambling, businesses of a prurient sexual nature, pawn shops where more than 50% of the income derives from interest charged, religious organizations, investment companies and lending companies such as banks, charitable organizations. Private nonprofits are okay. So if it's a 501(c)(3) that is not a charitable organization, that's okay. Speculative activities and agricultural enterprises. Ag enterprises are generally covered by the United States Department of Agriculture and not the Small Business Administration. Next slide. The general criteria for approval. So, if you could have gone to the bank in January, a bank in January, and if you had sat down with them to seek some kind of financing for your business and you think they would have said yes, then you're in good shape. But generally speaking, this criteria there are 3 points. First, your general credit history must be acceptable to the SBA. So that means that in January, the month of January, if you were up to date on your payments and your obligations and everything was going basically okay, then we should be happy. And we choose January because January 31 is when we say the disaster started for purposes of this disaster loan. Secondly, we want to look at your business and the revenue it's likely to generate when it comes out of the crisis. Will you be able to repay the loan based on those forecasts? And those forecasts are going to be derived, and we'll talk about this on a later slide, from the information that you will be submitting to the SBA. So as long as we can show that you will be able to repay the loan and you had a reasonable credit background as of January 31st, then you should be fine. In addition, you have to be located in a disaster area, and you are. Texas is a federally declared disaster area, and you have to show that you suffered losses due to the disaster. And that's pretty much all the businesses in Houston right now, except for maybe hospitals and grocery stores. So next page. So how do you apply? First, and very importantly, you need to use the latest editions of Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. If you're not sure if yours is updated, then please, by all means, update it. Make sure you have all those updates applied before you try. We are told that people that use other browsers other than Explorer or Edge will get weird timeouts and other problems on some of the pages. So everything is going to be online. You're going to go to the website that's shown, www.sba .gov/disaster. You can also contact our Disaster Customer Service Center. The toll-free number is listed there, 800-659-2955. You can see their email address. They're happy to contact you via email. And if you or someone you know is hard of hearing, you can use a TTY line. And by the way, when you call that 800 number, if you prefer another language, then you can ask for that and they can transfer you to an operator that speaks your language. Now, let me make an important note here. We all know what it was like when Hurricane Harvey happened in Houston. So right now, this is the equivalent of Hurricane Harvey happening in all 50 states simultaneously. Bear with me 1 second. My computer wanted to reset itself, so I told it not to. So this is like Hurricane Harvey happening in every state simultaneously. So when you call that 800 number, you might go through on the very first ring, or you might be on hold for a prolonged period. I don't know. But if that does happen to you, I would encourage you to just turn your clock upside down. So rather than call during business hours, why don't you call between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.? If you do that, then you're likely calling at a time when everybody else is not calling, and you should get through more quickly. And maybe all you're going to need is a cup of coffee to be able to complete the phone call. Next slide, please. So what do you need to apply? When you go in to do the loan application, which basically just collects information about who you are and what you do, one of the things you'll have to do is complete what's called a Form 4506T. That allows us to get the transcript of your taxes from the IRS. We need one for each owner of your company. So that's each principal that owns 20% or more. If you're a partnership, then each general partner. If it's an LLC, then each managing member. And also, each owner who also owns more than 50% of a business that is affiliated with yours. So if you have affiliate businesses, then each owner that also owns 50% or more of that affiliate. And then we're looking for 2 years complete business tax returns. Now, remember on a previous slide when I said, if you take your operating expenses per month, multiply it by 6, that should be roughly the loan amount. Well, if that number comes out to under 500,000, then we're not going to ask you to upload these tax returns. In that case, we just need the 4506T because we're going to work on your loan using your transcripts. Also, if you haven't been in business for 2 years, that's okay. Submit what you have. We will work with whatever you submit. Also, each owner or each applicant must complete a personal financial statement so we know what your specific personal situation is. And then there needs to be a schedule of liabilities for the business. Now, when you go to that disaster webpage that I showed you on a previous slide, when you go to that disaster webpage, you can find these forms. You can go ahead and find the 4506T, the personal financial statement, and the schedule of liabilities. If you wanted to go ahead and download those, send those to the owners so that they can fill those out for the 4506T and the personal financial statement, you can go ahead and do your schedule of liabilities. And then when you complete your application, you can do those parts faster. Now, there are some other things that might be requested. If you don't have recent federal tax returns, then a current year-to-date profit and loss statement will probably be requested. We may also ask you to fill out a one-page form called a 1368 on what your monthly sales figures are. Now, they're both pretty simple things, but those may be requested, and those are sometimes requested when we don't have 2 years worth of financial data to work from. Next slide, please. So this is the general process. The first green bar there, apply online, is what we just discussed. After that, it goes to an SBA loan analyst, and they will make the decision on the loan. They're going to verify your information, check your credit, forecast your numbers based on the information that you have submitted, and then they'll contact you to make recommendations and decide on the loan. That generally takes up to 4 weeks. So the goal is that from the time you submit it, we will have seen it within a week, And then within 4 weeks, we will be on the phone with you, hopefully for this final step, which is closing the loan. So at that point, you'll sign and submit the loan documents. We will get $25,000 to you within 5 days, and we will assign to you a case manager. Now, this is not the person that helped you with the loan. This is someone that will be your contact in the future, today and in the future, to help you with the loan once it occurs. So we'll assign a case manager at that time, and that's who you'll work with as long as you have that loan, them or whoever succeeds them. So that's the general process of getting the disaster loan. Next slide, please. Some really important points. Don't rush the application. We all feel a sense of urgency right now and want to hurry up and get it done and click submit. But if it wasn't complete, if you left out some key pieces of information, then we're just going to have to come back to you and try to find that information. And that's going to delay everything. Yeah, think of it this way. You go to the doctor's office, there's 100 people in line to see the counter. You get up to the counter and you forgot your ID and you can't prove who you are. You have to go back to the car. But when you come back, you're going to be the 101st person in line now. You don't go back up to the front. Imagine it's like that. So take your time, get all the information documented as completely as possible, and then things should go more quickly. If once you get the loan, you find out you need more, fine, contact us. We'll tell you what we need from you so we can document the increase. If you find out you need less money, same thing, call us so we don't disperse it to you, because once we disperse it, you have to pay it back. And we can reduce the loan. And if the worst thing happens and you're denied, then you get up to 6 months to provide any additional information that we need. Give us a written reconsideration request and we will absolutely take a look at it. Next slide, please. If you have an existing SBA business loan, this is not a disaster loan, but a business loan, then you can contact your lender. We have given them the authority to delay those payments for up to 6 months. So if you have what's called a 7A loan, you can contact your lender today, tell them you'd like to defer payments and work things out with them. They are not obligated to do that, but it's in their best interest and yours to defer those payments so that you can avoid that for the time being as you get back on your feet from this crisis. If you have a micro loan, it can be delayed for up to 6 months as long as it doesn't extend your maximum maturity date of 6 years. If you have a 504, it's deferred up to 6 months or 20% of the original loan amount, whichever is less. So contact your SBA lender if you have an existing SBA business loan and see if they can defer your loan. Next slide, please. So you get this loan, the economic injury disaster loan or not, but in any event, you get to a point of stability. Please use our partners. Actually, you can use them now. You don't have to wait to a point of stability. Use our partners to help you out. The Texas Gulf Coast Small Business Development Centers, or SBDC, as we call them, the SCORE Mentors, and the WBEA Women's Business Center, or WBC, as we call them. Between them, they have nearly 300 people. They're scattered all over the metro, and they can help you with anything your business needs. Specifically, right now, some things that are commonly asked for. Help you with cash flow management. Really important to conserve your cash right now. So they can help you make some decisions along those lines or make some recommendations. Messaging and use of social media to stay engaged with your customers. So your business is not doing a lot with its customers right now. Maybe you're a restaurant and you have to be closed right now, except for delivery and takeout. This is a great time to rethink your contact strategy for staying in touch with customers. You don't want them to forget about you during this crisis. We have clients that are having difficulty getting things through some ports, so we may be able to help you with that. Supply chain issues are common right now. If your business is slow, your suppliers' businesses may be slow. As a result, you may need to look at diversifying your supply chain so that you can get multiple suppliers for things that are critical for you doing what you do. Now, maybe it's more once you get to a point of stability, but strategic planning. This is a great time to work with these partners to put together a plan for how you're going to prosper after the disaster. Once business begins to pick up again, and maybe do a financial tune-up. Look at your financial fundamentals and make sure your business is positioned well once it exits this disaster. And it is never too late to plan for further disasters. Assessing your risks and looking at appropriate insurance for your business. We know, living in Houston, we will have more disasters of some sort coming along. This is a great time to just take that seriously while business is slower and do some additional planning. Next slide, please. Now, this slide has a bunch of stuff that I cannot attest to except for the very first bullet, but we want to share with you information when we get it. And again, this website, this PowerPoint, which is updated pretty much every day, will be on the Houston SBA website, so you can go check this anytime. First, SBA has an official YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel, at the address that I've got on the slide, you can watch an SBA video on how to complete a disaster loan application. It's a very general video which covers individuals, and it covers business property damage as well as economic injury. So it's not tailored exactly to this situation, but it has very good information, and it is produced by the SBA. There are lots of videos out there right now, and they aren't from the SBA except this one. So if you go to YouTube and just type in the search box SBA disaster, you will find lots and lots and lots of them. Now, I do want to mention one in particular. It is not an SBA video, and I'm not endorsing it, but I did see it this morning, and it is produced specifically for the economic injury disaster loan for COVID-19 disaster. The organization that put it out is Generator. That's G-E-N-E-R, the number 8, T-O-R. Generator is an incubator accelerator. And they did this video. It's about 15 minutes long, and it looked to me like it was pretty good. Again, I didn't have anything to do with it, so SBA is not endorsing it, but I want you to be aware that it exists. I understand that JP Morgan Chase and Regions Bank are offering special programs for their clients. The Galveston Economic Development Alliance has put together a short-term bridge loan program. That's, I think, up to $25,000 at a little over 3% interest to be repaid within 6 months. So there's the website address at that bit.ly address that you can learn about that. If you have an existing banker relationship or lender relationship, someone that you do business with today, give them a call. If they can extend some kind of a bridge loan to you, then they will. They want you to be able to get through this so that you remain their customer in the future. Not all banks will be able to, not all banks will want to, but it's worth making a call. I found out that I think Texas First Bank and Wells Fargo Bank have also said that they are doing things specifically for their customers. And as I hear of even more, then we will make sure to let you know. Next slide, please. These are our resource partners that I mentioned earlier. You should contact them to give you some help throughout this crisis. As I said, whether that's helping you with cash flow management or even helping you get your documents and figures organized for the economic injury loan, they can help. So you see their names and phone numbers and websites there, as well as the U.S. Small Business Administration. You can call us at 713-773-6500. Now that probably is going to go to some equivalent of an answering machine, but we will get back to you just as fast as we can. But all 4 of these organizations are available to help you. We are all working virtually, so we'll be connecting with you by telephone, by Skype, by email, or by some other way in order to help you out. I think that brings us to the conclusion of the presentation. So now we wanted to try to answer questions. With me on the call is Mark Winchester. Mark is the Deputy Director of the Small Business Administration and knows all of these things like the back of his hand. And Mark, I'm going to fade into the background and I'll chime in if I need to, but let you answer the questions now.
I'm on the call. Carrie, do you want to read the questions? How would you like to do this? Or excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
our chat is going to be open for you to, are you able to see the questions from where you're at on the chat?
I am.
Okay.
I can do that
Well,
also.
yes, let me start by just asking a couple of questions that came to us almost preliminarily to this meeting. And I know a lot
Sure.
of them have been answered already by Tim in his presentation. But if you could just very quickly let the audience know what designates a small business, or in this case, you know, is there a size? Is there an industry type? Can you just very quickly clarify that? And it's not quick, I understand, but overall, what designates a small business?
Boy, Carrie, excellent question. So what it is it's either based on your revenues or number of employees. And typically for manufacturing types of businesses, if they have 500 employees or less, it meets the SBA size standard. And then there are other types of businesses that are such as the retail business or wholesale business, and those are really based on revenues. And once again, whether it's the manufacturing or retail or restaurant, it's going to be based on your NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System. So businesses that are in retail or wholesale, it's revenues, and it can go up to $37.5 million in revenues. A great place to go is www.sba.gov/size, and you'll want to, have your North American Industry Classification Industrial Code, and then once you go to the landing page for size, you can then search your industrial code, and then it will list for you what the size standard is from SBA for you to determine that you meet the SBA size standards. And I will share this, a great tool for obtaining your NAICS code is a uscensus.gov, and within uscensus.gov, go to NAICS, and you can type in a keyword, and the NAICS code will come up. And just be aware that the NAICS code can be 3 digits. The complete NAICS code is 6 digits. And if you need assistance in determining your size standards, determining your NAICS code, Tim did a great job in the PowerPoint with the not only disaster loan programs, but also our non-disaster loan assistance, and that includes our SBA resource partners, the SBDC, SCORE, Women's Business Center, and they can assist you in determining your NAICS code and also determining your size standard. So I hope I answered your question, Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. This question has come up. I think there are a lot of technical questions, but the one on everyone's mind, and I know Tim reviewed it, is when do I receive the assistance? How quickly will I receive my first check? Can you give an idea? And I know there's so many different cases here when you get your application in, if your application is complete, but when is the soonest that people can start seeing some relief?
Okay, so Carrie, that's a great question, and I think, Carrie, a lot of people can relate to Hurricane Harvey. During Hurricane Harvey, what ODA communicated was the turnaround time to respond to an application was 4 weeks. And so the official answer from Office of Disaster Assistance is 4 weeks. And it's, Carrie, it's 4 weeks from the time that you've submitted your application. And Carrie, it's really 4 weeks if you've completed the entire form, just as Tim indicated. It's either the Form 5C or the Form 5. And the online application includes the schedule of liabilities, It includes the personal financial statement. It includes your 4506T. And, you know, as Tim pointed out also, you may need to include your profit and loss, your statement, your cash flow statement, your balance sheet. And so it's from the time that you've submitted the application, the forms, and the supporting documents. And if there aren't any screen outs, that turnaround time is 4 weeks. Now, keep in mind that, you know, that official answer of 4 weeks was prior to coronavirus. And so you want to do your due diligence. You want to get that application in. You want to get the supporting documents. And so I hope that answers your question, Carrie.
Yes, thank you. For a lot of our audience and a lot of the business community, they do have access to banks and other sources of credit. But what would your recommendation be if those folks wanted to also apply for a disaster assistance through the SBA?
You know, Carrie, that's a great question. We get questions such as, Carrie, Mark, do I need to get a letter from a bank that I've been declined regarding credit elsewhere? And the answer is no. Really, it's 3 items, Carrie. It's your cash flow, it's your repayment ability, it's your credit, and you know, those are really the 3 determining factors regarding credit elsewhere. Now, you know, if the business has a line of credit, sorry about that. If the business has a line of credit, if they have access to a term loan, the question, Carrie, is does that line of credit, does that access to the term loan cover all their debts? So keep in mind, the intent of the EIDL is to not cover loss of revenues. The intent is to cover the debts, and Tim did a great job on that, covering, identifying it's your payroll, it's your accounts payable, it's your current liabilities, it's your long-term loans. All that combined is your debt, and as Tim mentioned, pretty much it's your operating expenses for 6 months. And so if, Carrie, if that line of credit doesn't cover all that, then they will definitely want to apply for the EIDL loan.
Okay. And, you know, today we're in the situation we are today. Tomorrow is another day, but what do we say to our employers not knowing what the next 4 weeks will look like? Can they go back, and I know this was answered, but can they go back and ask for more if this continues?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Carrie. What they will want to do is work with ODA. They'll want to work, they're going to get an assigned case manager. And as Tim Jeffcoat, the district director, pointed out, they can work with ODA, work with their case manager, either to request more funds, or if they need to decrease the amount of funds, they need to work with their case manager. But with that said, Carrie, they really need to also substantiate the reason for the increase or the decrease in the funds.
Great. Well, we're going to go ahead and let you go over to our chat area and answer some of the questions that are there. Mark, are you able to do that?
I am, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie. It looks like the first question is from Anita. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Anita writes, if a borrower applies for an EIDL and a regular loan through a bank, SBA or conventional, simultaneously, and it is approved by both at the same time. Interesting question, Anita. Does that individual need to turn down one, or can they keep both? Now, a couple of things. One, Anita, could they apply, you know, the scenario where that definitely would apply is the express bridge loan, that would be the SBA Express Bridge loan, which goes up to $25,000, and they could apply for that. They could apply for the economic injury disaster loan, and once approved for the economic injury disaster loan, they could utilize that to pay all or a portion of that SBA Express Bridge loan. Now, if they were to get, let's say, a conventional loan or an SBA loan, their EIDL loan, the loan guarantee portion of the SBA loan does not diminish their ability to get the EIDL loan. So yes, they could apply for an SBA loan or a conventional loan, but just keep in mind, audience, keep in mind, Anita, that the key is cash flow. The key is the schedule of liabilities. The key is your ability to repay those loans. So if you were to get both, and you're going to utilize both, you have to demonstrate repayment ability, and that's through cash flow. And so yes, you'll need to demonstrate your ability to pay both. And I hope that answered the question, Anita. Roel writes, hello, Greater Houston Partnership Event Team. Okay, and Lauren, thank you so much for posting. These are great resources. The Houston.org Coronavirus, Ready Harris, critical infrastructure. These are great resources. Let's see.
Mark, one question that's come up is if we're accruing on a deferred payment, or are we accruing interest if we defer a payment until the end of the year?
Boy, those are great questions, and I just want to review, Carrie, reiterate what Tim, the district director, had reviewed. One, if you have an SBA loan, non-disaster SBA loan, the 7A loan, the 504 loan, if they have a 7A or 504 or micro loan, they can request for 6 consecutive months of deferment, and deferment means non-payment, but that also means that the interest is accruing, and they'll want to include those loans in the schedule of liabilities. 2, your audience could have, we've been hit by Imelda, we've been hit by Harvey, we had the tax day flood, we had the Memorial Weekend flood, we had Ike. And so you may have businesses out there on this webinar chat that may have an existing SBA disaster loan prior to COVID-19. So, Carrie, those that have an existing SBA disaster loan, and this is a direct loan from SBA, they can defer 12 months on that disaster loan. And once again, there's accruing of interest. And then so, yes, there's accruing of interest. They'll want to include this in the schedule of liabilities, and also keep in mind whether it's the 7A, whether it's the disaster loan, after that deferment period, you're going to have to pay more in principal to get caught up on those payments. I hope I answered your question, Carrie.
Yeah, and here's one that may have been covered, I'm not sure, but can a SBA loan be used by a tenant to pay their rent?
Boy, that's an interesting question. So if they are, if they are a business, and they're paying the rent for the business, that's an operating expense, and that can be part of their debt, which can be included in the economic injury disaster loan. Keep in mind the EIDL is not a grant, it is a loan, it does require a personal guarantee, and it's a business loan. And so these expenses need to be tied to the business. So if they are a tenant as a business and they're paying rent, yes, that's part of the operating expenses. And as Tim Jeffcoat, the district director, mentioned, a majority of the economic injury disaster loan is going to be based on 6 times their operating expenses, which would include the rent. Carrie, I see a question here from Nushin. If we have a line of credit with a bank, are we still eligible? It gets back to Nushin. I give you an A+, Nushin. It gets back to the question of, does that line of credit, is it sufficient enough to address all your outstanding debt? And if it doesn't, then you will want to apply for the economic injury disaster loan. And I hope that answers your question. And then I think there's another question from Lauren Dollard, and is interest accruing, I think, on deferred payment due from previous SBA, will interest be accruing on the SBA? I think I answered that question.
You did. We were just making sure it got covered, so it looks like we might have put that in there twice. Okay. I think Janice Jecker had another question that just popped up on SBA messaging about deferment. She's asking if we could talk, if it could talk about interest accruing. Many people do not understand that part. And I think you just covered it, but maybe it can be messaged on the website.
Sure, we can do that. You know, we really do appreciate Janice Jucker. We appreciate Three Brothers Bakery because they were recognized as the family-owned business of the year. We have a SBA since 1963 has been celebrating small business, and we do that locally, and we do that the first week of May. And last year, Janice and her husband and the business were recognized as a family-owned small business, and also Janice and her husband and the business were recognized for their recovery from disaster. So really do appreciate Ms. Jucker being on this call, and I appreciate her questions. And yes, the 7A loan, the disaster loan, there's deferment, the SBA disaster loan, 12 months deferment, and on the 7A and the 504, 6 months deferment, and the interest will be accruing. And then after that deferment period, the principal will be increased to get caught up on those loans.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up the Q&A right now. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tim. Very much appreciated. Tim is going to be conducting another webinar in a few minutes, and they are doing frequent webinars. So and updating folks on information that's coming out. So I encourage, and we'll share the information on those webinars. But Mark, thank you so much. Tim, thank you so much. If you have any other questions for the Greater Houston Partnership, for our staff, we will be there to answer your questions, your emails. We are virtual as well, but we want to continue to connect with you where we can. So I just shared the poll results. Thank you. You can be sure that we will be putting together programming on these topics in the very near future. In fact, we have one coming up on employment and workforce on Thursday, and you'll be receiving a notice about that. So we'll take your questions, anything that we weren't able to answer, and then we'll make sure that we do a Q&A and an FAQ and send it out to everyone. And again, I want to thank you all for participating. So we are going to end the meeting now. Thank you very much.